Welcome everyone to our Post-Bac program, Strengthening Your Application as part of our Pre-Health Application Week program. My name is Roni Rufian. I'm one of the career engagement educators. I'm joined today by Brian Henry and Sarah Stay, who are going to be helping me throughout the program. Before we get started with our wonderful program and be able to speak to our representatives today, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what is happening this week, or what has actually happened this week. This is our last program as part of the Pre-Health Application Week, just to give you a highlight of what is to come tomorrow, as well as far as our information, our health fair as well. So let me move on to my next slide. Having a little bit of a technical difficulty. There we go, perfect. So this whole week, if you were not able to join us, hopefully you were able to join us for some of our programs. We had a wonderful lineup. Students had the opportunity to meet admissions advisors and talk to them about the requirements and so on within an array of different healthcare professions. Again, today, right now, is our last Post-Bac program. Our panelists, our speakers will also be joining us tomorrow as part of our health school fair. So I wanted to bring your attention to our health school fair that is happening virtually tomorrow. Why is it important to attend our fair? You get the opportunity to meet one-on-one and connect with admissions reps from 50+ health professional schools. So for those of you who are thinking about med school or dentistry or pharmacy and are thinking that a post-bac would be ideal for you to go through before you start, you know, the fair is a great opportunity to be able to connect with admissions advisors from post-bac programs and also the related health professions. You get to ask questions about applications and explore the programs and compare options and so on. You'll have the opportunity to learn about the financial options. And then also we do have 2 test prep programs coming through. So if you do go and visit their booth tomorrow virtually, you will be entered to win some great test prep discounts for the MCAT, GRE, DAT, whatever the test it is that you're interested in. So if you have not registered yet for the fair, feel free to do so. I think it's a very important opportunity for you all to get a chance to connect and meet with admissions advisors and staff and faculty from the different programs. Along with that, at the Career Center, just to kind of put in a plug about our services, we're here to help you guys as far as timelines, applications, personal statements, within, again, an array of allied health schools. So you're more than welcome to come and visit us and schedule a counseling session through Handshake as well, and we'll be able to help you with all of that, with all the application process and timeline as well. I wanted to now introduce Brian Henry, who's going to talk about college academic mentors and college academic counseling.
Thank you so much. Once again, my name is Brian Henry. I'm interim co-director of college academic counseling. I'm one of the academic counselors, and I also have the pleasure of coordinating the college academic mentor program. College academic mentors are graduate students in many different fields, from public health to nursing to library information sciences, political science, many different fields, but they advise our first and second year students. More importantly, they advise students on professional and graduate school options. So while you might go and talk to the Career Center about multiple different things like preparing for interviews or your journey in selecting different schools, we can assist you in academically preparing for those programs. So if you wanted to talk about integrating your academic coursework into a plan to meet the requirements, or different opportunities to kind of enhance your UCLA undergraduate experience through internships, through research, or other opportunities, our college academic mentors are really happy to assist you in exploring all of your options. You can reach us through cac.ucla.edu. We have virtual drop-ins, so if you want same-day assistance, you can go Monday through Friday from 10 to 12 or 1 to 4. We have drop-ins. Sometimes there's a little bit of a wait, but you'll then be meeting with our peer counselors, a college academic mentor, or a full-time counselor like myself based on your need. And so that's the best way to get same-day assistance. We do schedule 30-minute appointments. The CAMs are able to book appointments 2 weeks out in advance. So you can schedule one through virtual drop-in, or you can request an appointment through Message Center by selecting CAC, College Academic Counseling, in the queue. So if you have very quick questions about pre-med, pre-health programs, we might be able to assist you on Message Center if it just requires a very fast response. That one can take a while though, about 2 to 5 business days, depending on our volume. So fastest way to see us right now is through virtual drop-in, and our CAMs would love to meet with you for appointments as well.
Thank you so much, Brian. I wanted to go ahead now and introduce Sarah, who's going to talk about medicine and art and the wonderful student org on campus. So let me forward to the next slide. Perfect. And Sarah will be moderating our panel today as well. So take it away, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from Medicine and Art. And Ronnie, if you want to go, I have a little bit more information on the next slide as well. But I'm an undergraduate student. I'm going to be graduating this spring with a bachelor's in neuroscience, and I'm also the vice president of Medicine and Art, which is a really awesome student organization that looks to build a community of students who are interested in the connection between medicine and art, and how that connection can be really beneficial for healthcare in general. And we have a range of students who are both passionate about pursuing healthcare and also their art. We have visual artists, musicians. I personally am a dancer. That is my art form. And we have lots of different events. As you can see, we have a couple pictures from 2 of our in-person events pre-COVID. One from our painting social on Jan's, and also from a paper crane event that we did. And we sent those paper cranes to the hospital. So kind of looking at ways that we can help with the healing process through art. And we're also doing virtual events. And if you're interested, you can use the QR code to visit our website, or you can visit us on Instagram and Facebook, or you can email us. And also, hopefully, if you're interested, if you have any friends who are artists, or if you yourself are an artist, we're doing a virtual art gallery, again, for the second time since COVID. And we are going to showcase student and faculty art. So feel free to submit that. But yeah, that's a bit about medicine and art. I'm sure you guys are excited to get to the actual panel portion. So we'll have about 30 minutes of questions, and then about 20-ish minutes for Q&A. So if you do have questions, a great time to ask them would be at the end during the Q&A. And yeah, so let's get started. Our 2 guest speakers are June Kim, the Senior Director of Postbaccalaureate Programs, and Christian Carlson, the Associate Professor of Clinical Integrative Anatomical Sciences at USC. And let's get started. So the first question that I have for the panelists is, who would be a strong candidate for your program, and what qualities are you looking for?
Sarah, who did you want to go first? Does it matter?
Yeah, either whoever is ready to speak.
All right, I could take this. Who would be a strong candidate? So first off, I think we need to clarify, because a lot of students and individuals make the mistake that KGI is USC because they see or hear the Keck and immediately connect that with USC. We are not USC. We are part of the Claremont Consortium of Colleges in Claremont, California. Maybe some of you are more familiar with the undergrad campuses of Harvey Mudd, Pomona College, Claremont McKenna College, so KGI. So we look for students who basically are looking for a chance for redemption, if you will. Students have used that expression, not me. Students have used second chance as well, just really highly motivated students who are looking to really challenge themselves. If you are someone who basically is looking for, I'm looking for a program that's going to make me successful, that is not a good fit, because we don't serve and distribute success in an envelope, if that makes any sense. We're a very, very small place. And Ronnie and Brian, I'm not rubbing this in, but my colleague and I, we have less than 100 students for which we advise and oversee. So with that kind of a high touch situation, a structure, we're able to work very closely with our students. So I think for us, a strong candidate would be someone who did okay. And what I mean by okay, because I know you guys are thinking numbers, GPA numbers. Let's put it this way: the lowest GPA, undergrad GPA we have accepted, and that person has gone on to medical school and so forth, is about a 2.6. But I would say our average is right around a 3.2. That's who would be a great fit for our program.
So I think what I would encourage all of you to do is, following along what June mentioned, most of these types of programs you might be considering will probably be trying to make sure that the fit is really solid. In other words, you have an opportunity when you're asking questions about any of these programs, say tomorrow or in other situations, to make sure that you are going to get exactly what you need. And so we try to make sure in our program that we're looking for people who would be well suited for sort of what we can offer. So we're not necessarily interested in someone who has a 4.0 or someone who has, you know, really strong test scores, but are we actually providing what you're interested in getting out of the program? So sort of with that in mind, our application sort of admissions process, we don't consider test scores. We do look at GPAs, and we also have some interest in the recommendations, the reference letters that you have. They don't need to be from your professors or academics. They can be from people outside of academia. If it's like someone that knows you well from the workplace, for example. We sort of also have an opportunity in the application where you have a short essay question. You sort of give us a personal statement, and we're just trying to assess whether the program can provide what you're looking to get from it. And so we tend to have or attract candidates, applicants that have sort of two broader goals. And one is those that are maybe looking to get a little bit of exposure to a medical school program. Is it sort of something that they're really truly interested in? We also we attract people who are interested in perhaps in a career in teaching anatomy in some form. And so I think those tend to be right now the two larger pools of applicants that we're seeing.
Excellent. So our next question is, what does your admissions process and timeline look like? Who's involved? And are there any changes due to COVID-19? Whoever's ready to speak on that.
I could answer that, but before I do, if I could be so bold, can I invite some of you students in attendance to turn on your cameras? You know, when I do any kind of events, I always find it very interesting that we're doing a synchronous event versus an asynchronous event, because we could have just, Christian and I could have just recorded this and just distributed. But there's a real benefit, a real tangible benefit to doing it synchronously, and also to make the connection. And for those of you that do, you know, those of you that have taken Intro to Psych, there will be a reward. I promise you, I will deliver on a reward for those of you who are able to turn on your camera. Not to penalize those of you that can't, but to reward those of you that are able to. And again, it would just be wonderful to be able to simulate if we were meeting in person. Because I always come back to UCLA in person, because virtual Diddy Reese cookies don't taste the same as the real deal. So, all right, so let me answer this question. Thank you so much for those of you that are able to turn on your camera. What does your admission process look like? The timeline, it's about 2 weeks. We have an online application for KGI's Post-Bac program, And there is an interview portion. We interview virtually everybody. As long as the candidate has a real viable chance of getting accepted, we will do an interview. The interview is in person or virtual. We definitely have been doing virtual interview even before the pandemic, because our program, even though it's small, we get students from all over. We've gotten students from Maine. Yes, people do live in Maine other than lobster fishermen. We have had students from North Dakota and Alaska. So we're really looking for everybody and anywhere who really is passionate about pursuing medicine or PA. Our program is designed, and this is where I really appreciate what Christian said about fit. Our Post-Bac program was designed specifically for medical school bound folks and specifically for PA. Have we had students who had other goals? Yes, we've had. We've had 7 pre-dent students come through our program. We've had our first occupational therapy student. We've had 1 pharmacy student who's now at USC School of Pharmacy. But our programs were designed for medicine and PA. And why is that important? It's exactly what Christian said about fit. You want to go to a program where your needs align with what that program has to offer. So for us, it's a very small, students coming from all over, mostly for medicine and PA. Students will usually hear their decision within 2 weeks or less from their interview date. And the way we evaluate candidates is not so much against some arbitrary standard, but what we as a committee are looking at is if the individual, the applicant, were to come to KGI and completed the program successfully, would they get in? Are they likely to get into a medical school in the US? Are they likely to get into a PA program? If the answer is a yes, then our admission decision is a yes. If the probability is low, or we think that the student would struggle, or there just would be a small chance, then our only ethical decision is a no. In terms of their changes due to COVID, no, there hasn't really been any changes. I think this question might have the thought of, can we now apply without any experience because COVID caused everything to shut down and therefore we can't get clinical experience? That's a question that, I obviously get a lot when students are asking about, before applying to schools. And the short answer is you need to have experience before you could successfully get into a program. There's no way that you can get into a program with no clinical experience, no matter how high your MCAT, no matter how high your GPA.
So our admissions process begins and I emphasize begins in February. So early February is when we start to review applications for the coming year. Our program begins in June every year. So for example, we're now considering admissions for beginning in say 2 months. And we however, consider applications on a rolling basis, and we really emphasize a small class. So we try to be somewhere between 10 and 20 persons in our class, and the reason for that is because we really want to invest in each of the applicants, each of the people in the class. We consider basically the fit. Are we able to provide what you're looking for? And that's why we look at the applications in all parts of the application. So there aren't thresholds for test scores or GPAs. The personal statement is something of importance. The reference letters are of importance, because we would rather not accept someone who we think is unable to complete the program, and our interest is in making sure that you successfully complete the program. We're a smallish department, and most of our courses are taught thus by our faculty who are also teaching the medical students. So that opportunity is in parallel. The students are being taught by the same people teaching the medical students here at Keck. And this past year, like many of us, we had to develop an online curriculum. So we are prepared, whether it's online or in person. like all of us, I suspect, we're hoping that in the fall we are in person. And for our summer course, beginning in June, every indication that we're receiving so far, since we're a small group, we can socially distance in the dissection lab, we would be in person. That hopefully gives you an idea of our admissions process and the timelines and such.
Okay, and we'll go on to the next question. What are the components of a competitive application aside from GPA and test scores, with consideration for personal statement, letters of rec, etc.? And I think you might have touched briefly on this, both of you, but if you could potentially give a little bit more detail, that would be great.
Absolutely. So we all know that those academic metrics aren't the only, or in many cases, the most reliable indicators. And so for us, we definitely look at the entire context of one's undergraduate record, everything from their work experiences, life experiences. And so we're looking for evidence that convey a message of promise, evidence for someone who can be successful if in the right environment. I mean, oftentimes one of the things I hear over and over again are students from the UCs. And again, I'm a product of the UCs. My wife is a product of the UCs. It's a larger undergrad institution. And for many high schoolers who transition from their high school to UC, it's a rough transition. When Brian was talking about the CAMS program, I'm thinking to myself, where was this program, some 30 years ago when I started undergrad? And so for us, we are looking for life experiences, like I said. And if you think about, so this might be something that the students here could understand. So NCAA D1 football ranking, right? Football ranking is done not just purely based on wins and losses, but it's strength of schedule, isn't it? Which teams have you competed against? And that's kind of similar to the way we do it. I mean, someone could have a 3.6, but that's a 3.6 untested. That's a 3.6 where all the student had to do was go to school. Now you compare that against, let's say, a 3.3, but that individual had to take grandma to her doctor's appointment. That student also had to work 20 hours a week. And so there's ways that we as a committee can look between the lines and determine whether we think someone's going to be successful or not. And of course, we do look at letters, although we're also very cautious, because I remember how it felt to get letters for grad school when I was at LA. It was rough. I think I had to stalk a faculty member to get a little bit of a window to talk to him, to let him know that I was in his class. It was in Moore Hall, I remember. And I said, I'm thinking about going to grad school, but I need a letter, and I was in your class, but I don't think you know me. Is there any way we can meet? And very fortunate that he agreed to meet up with me at another time, so I was able to do that. But it is tough. So, well, we look at all of those things, and obviously the interview is huge. We look at the interview to determine whether someone is really motivated to come to KGI, because we are a different, unique school. We're graduate. We're also very team-based. I believe Scantrons are illegal or banned from our campus. We do not have Scantrons. A lot of our assignments are group-based. So we look at the whole person is basically what it is.
So I'd like to just pick up on emphasizing some of the really important things that June emphasized, and that is present yourself as a whole person when you're speaking with people at programs, because oftentimes, say you're someone that came into pre-health late in your undergrad career, or say that we get applications from people who have taken a couple of years off before they've gone back into education, and all of these are very important considerations because not everyone is going to be sort of a candidate who's just finished or is a senior finishing and looking to proceed in sort of the classic format. And The letters that you're interested in writing sometimes maybe, you know, your strongest letter, the person who knows you, who knows your diligence and hard working and your capability for success might not be someone who was your teacher in a classroom. Of course, it helps for us to assess letters if we sort of have some equivalency with which to evaluate who these compliments are coming from. But yeah, I think the things, I don't really have much more to add to what June mentioned. These are all really important things, and the whole of the person is also something that we emphasize.
All right, so we're going to move on to question 4, which is, what type of experiences do programs look for students to have on their application? Are there considerations for impacts due to COVID? And I don't know why it's smaller, but should students consider taking a gap year to gain more experience? Would it help?
Great question. What's kind of a very nerve-wracking from my perspective is how things are always getting more competitive. And I sometimes half jokingly say that pretty soon they're going to need a post-Bac program to get in, because even these programs starting to get really competitive. Obviously, we do not see a whole lot of 90th percentile or better test scores. We don't see a whole lot of 3.8 and above summa cum laude graduates, but we are seeing 3.5s, 3.6s. Those are academic metrics that back in my days, they probably would have gotten in, but the bar and the competition just keeps getting higher and higher. So I think the type of experiences that any student, not just for our program, and that's another thing that I love to do, is just talk about in general, because I think for those of you that have made the time to join us right now, I want to make it so worthwhile your time. And that is, no matter what post-bac program or any program you're going to, they're going to want to know, and they're going to want to see actual evidence, not just you telling them in a personal statement that you've always dreamt about becoming a doctor or what have you, but they're looking for evidence that this is really what you are committing to. And so that's why you need those experiences. And if it's a gap year, then so be it. If it's gap years, plural, then that's what it's got to be. But you're going to need to have some evidence to show that this is really what you're committed to doing. And so what I would say is make sure that you have some clinical experiences. Don't fall into the trap of prestige of an experience. I think that's something that a lot of students sort of get caught up in. Is like, well, I just did boring filing. I just kind of did inventory, saline bags and things like that. Well, I hope that's the type of safe volunteer activities you did, and you weren't catching babies and making, cuts in a surgical, setting. You're not properly trained to do that. So, but definite evidence for your passion and commitment for a future career in health professions. And then as far as the question about impacts due to COVID, I think I kind of touched upon it. I jumped the gun there. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's sufficient to say, well, COVID, my answer to that question is COVID. Why don't you have any leadership experience? COVID. I mean, it's just, what you have to understand, everyone, is that you could have a very legitimate explanation for why you're lacking in, let's say, clinical or any extracurricular activity during 2020, right? I mean, it's very legitimate. I mean, it's called a pandemic. Hello, the whole earth was experiencing, something that is never really seen. But what you have to understand is the way the admission works is there's always going to be some applicants who are able to scrounge up and scrape up some remote extracurricular activity, a food delivery. I mean, that's what some of my students did during last year, was they were delivering groceries to seniors in our community who couldn't leave their house. So the COVID thing, it provides an explanation and a context, but in the context of admissions, you have to understand that there's going to be someone and some applicants that's going to sort of have been proactive and done something. And so again, you're not penalized for not doing something because of COVID limitations, but those individuals, those applicants who were able to do something in spite of the pandemic, they're going to get some major brownie points.
We tend to look for experiences that, as June mentioned, demonstrate you're a good fit for the program. So, for example, if we're getting an applicant from a pre-health undergrad or senior, we'll look at experiences a little bit, but it's pretty clear that sort of it's a natural progression into the program and what we could provide you in your interests. But if you're someone that is not coming from a pre-health major, are you someone that's tried to sort of supplement in the last year or two after you've maybe made a transition by volunteering in a hospital or doing outreach of a health-related nature in the community, and these sorts of activities that sort of do generate some sort of accreditation of your interest. So we see all sorts of a range of activities, and it sort of goes hand in hand with the range of backgrounds in the applicants that we get. I think if it would be, I think now would also be a really good time. There's a recent graduate of our program who only a couple years ago, I guess, was in your very shoes at UCLA. And Pilar Hanna, if I could invite her to give her thoughts, especially about the gap year and what considerations you might sort of think about in that. Pilar, I think you'd have some potentially easily identifiable information for people.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Carlson. My name is Pilar Hanna. I am a former student of the IAS Anatomy program at USC, and I currently teach gross anatomy and histopath at UCLA School of Medicine. I personally took gap years. I took actually 2.5 years as gap years. I went to UC Irvine in undergrad, and as June said, it's a big school. I didn't do as well. And I thought, you know, I'm a pre-med, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a physician, which I love medicine, but I never explored other options during UCI. So I decided to take gap years where I was able to, you know, shadow different physicians and take more classes to improve my GPA. And one of the classes was anatomy. And I just loved anatomy so much more than interacting with patients. It worked better for my personality too. And I started to pursue, you know, the master program at USC, and it was a perfect fit. And now I'm so thankful that I took gap years to explore the different options and the different careers that I would have never, you know, explored if I was stuck. My mindset is stuck to, you know, I want to be a doctor, I want to become a physician, and like the other hundreds of the graduate of UCI. So I personally would encourage you to take gap year, you know, think about what you want to do, again, gain more experiences. I talk a lot with the medical student, and all of them pretty much, they have a lot of research experience. They work like as medical scribe, technicians, they volunteer a lot. And so that's what makes them a really well-rounded applicant. Of course, they've done really well on their MCAT and GPA, but more importantly, and what we actually look for on right now is what are their experiences beyond the classroom, beyond their grades. So this is my thoughts.
Thank you so much for that. And this is our last question before we move on to the Q&A. And it is, how do you assist your students with the professional school application process?
Go ahead, Christian. I don't want to take all the first answers. I'll let you get all the correct answers.
Thank you, June. So we have a couple of people in our department who have served on the admissions process for medical school at USC. We have several of us have been involved with medical education at other universities as well. So we're able to provide some insights for medical school applications. We will also, we're sort of, once a student has entered in to our program and finished the program, we're always there for being in your corner going forward. And so we still get requests for reference letters from students who have been out of the program for several years. And we still very much enjoy when students come back and visit us and sort of send us updates of their successes. So we tend to focus on preparing people for medical school. Other professional schools are an option. But then also, Pilar is entering a PhD program in anatomy in September, and so if I, June, if it's all right, could I invite Pilar just to give a couple minutes of her, like how she would answer this?
I want to say my personal experience. So first of all, like the anatomy faculty at USC, they've been amazing, including, of course, Dr. Carlson. Even though we give them like really hard time, they've been really supportive since day one. And they helped us a lot in the application process. So when we were applying to jobs, they've been helping us on how to write resumes, cover letters. They've actually shared some of their resumes and cover letters to show us how to write ones that are professional, especially for teaching position, which what I was seeking. And also they were really awesome for like preparing me for the interviews. And some interviews, they required like few PowerPoint and presentations, and they were more than willing to sit down and listen to me presenting, just like as a rough run. So they've been assisting me during school for like the schoolwork, of course, all my classes. They assisted me during my application process for jobs, for teaching positions. And also they've been kind of recently helping me with graduate school. So I applied to a PhD programs, and they were more than willing to provide me with letters of rec. And I guess because of their letters of rec, I got accepted into a good PhD program. Thank you so much, Dr. Carlson, always.
All right, so for us at KGI, so again, our entire school is about 500 students. That's probably less than how many bio majors are at UCLA. Definitely less than the bio majors at USC. I used to be the biology advisor at USC. We had about 900 bio majors there. So the way we assist our students with the application process is we actually have a course that I designed from scratch that really looks at, first of all, the fall semester is sort of your macro perspective on application. A lot of sort of theoretical frameworks from psychology, things on intelligence, human motivation, decision-making, goal setting. So fall semester is very sort of broad, 30,000 feet above. Spring semester is where the course transitions to a very technical course. We have personal statement writing. Drafts are due, where you receive feedback and then you have to rewrite and so forth. We also do extracurricular activities description. So that's another component of the course requirements. We also have book reports and presentations where you're going to read a current book, something related to health, because again, supposedly our students are very interested in medicine. So these books should be wonderful pleasure reading. So we have that. We spend 3 weeks in medical ethics. We go over sort of how to evaluate different medical schools, everything from demographics, geography, residency structures. I mean, it really is a very systematic way of looking at that whole process. And just to make sure that it's just not all PowerPoint and information dissemination, one of the coolest things we get to do at KGI is we get on a coach bus and we go visit med schools. We go visit PA programs. So we average around 10 programs a year. Unfortunately, last year, we all know what happened. And the sad thing is, We were all set to leave March 16th. It was a Monday, 5 a.m. We were all ready to leave for Northern California to go visit UCSF, Davis, Toro, Cal North State. And then March 13th afternoon, that's the Friday afternoon, the president's office sends out an email. Effective immediately, all KGI travel has been halted. And so very, very disappointed we couldn't go. But again, that is a component of the application process, because students need to be much more sophisticated in their understanding. They would be able to speak about the different types of curriculum. Is it a systems-based? Is it PBL? I mean, our students become well-versed in knowing about all the differences. And really in the process, they learn a lot about themselves. And this is where, as cheesy as it sounds, right? Got to know yourself. It's a very important ingredient to the success. And so going back to sort of maybe a little bit of that previous question, taking a gap year, I think it does wonders. I mean, think about it this way from a very tactical perspective. If you're just graduating from undergrad, very traditional flow, you're going to be about 21, 22. You're going to be competing against 24, 25-year applicants, and sometimes 27 and even older, who have 3 years of Wall Street banking experience. We have individuals who were teachers for 2 years for LA Unified. We had one girl, she played professional hockey in Austria. I mean, how do you compete against somebody with more life experience and more sort of what I like to describe goodies to bring to the potluck party? If you think about whether it's med school or even a post-bac program, and Christian, this is where you could correct me if I'm wrong, we're not just looking for takers. Like, this is why our program is great and you can just take. A lot of programs are also looking for you to contribute, to give to the community, to the program. And so that's one of the things that we're looking for is how would you contribute? And if you're, went the very much the traditional route, you're bringing what everybody else brings to a potluck: fried chicken, pizza, French fries. And again, don't get me wrong, I love those food, but I think we have to understand when someone's trying to put together a nice potluck party, it's kind of cool when you get some unique ethnic dishes and some very cool fusion cuisine. So think about what it is you want to accomplish before you just assume that you're going to transition immediately from UCLA to wherever it is you want to go.
And with that, we're gonna transition to a Q&A. So feel free to either type those questions in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature and you can say that question out loud, up to you. And yes, so we'd like to hear from you guys. Any questions are welcome.
Am I good to speak? Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to say thank you for putting this on. This is really helpful because I had no idea what a post-bac program even was before this. But I'm still a little confused about like the application timing in regards to, let's say you're applying to medical school and you do get rejected and you might need to find an alternative. How does that usually like play out in terms of timing?
June, would you like to go first?
Sure. The timing is this. I mean, usually students will ask about timeline, and then my sort of half sarcastic response, but accurate, is you tell me, when should you get married? I mean, it's this kind of weird generic question that I know where you guys are coming from, but the honest and best answer is it depends. I mean, some students need 2 years to fix their 4 years. Some students only need a little bit of rehab, if you will, and they're fine and good to go. So the timeline, it varies from person to person. But if you're talking about like sort of a generic one size fits all kind of a thing, our program starts in August. It runs until May. And most of our students who want to go immediately to med school PA, they're going to have to apply in that spring or that summer, and then they will matriculate the year after. So there is a 1 year gap. If you don't want any gaps, you want to go into your post-bac, and immediately after your post-bac, you want to transition. You have to understand that what are you going to possibly show to the med schools or PA schools? look, I'm enrolled in a post-bac program. I'm about to do some amazing things, so you should really accept me. Doesn't make sense. So this is where our most successful students are the ones who finish the program and then they apply. As much as, you know, they don't want to delay any further. And I know some parents would like, you know, everyone to kind of transition smoothly, but it really comes down to, do you want to apply right away and not get in? Or do you want to wait a year and then get in? Obviously, that's a false dichotomy. It's a hypothetical, but it's just to make the point that you should apply when you are at your strongest and most likely to get accepted. And that rule applies also for taking the MCAT.
So we will, in terms of people applying to our program, we will invariably see applicants later, even into May, of people who may have heard late that they weren't accepted into a medical program. And so we understand that some people may have applied to our program as a fallback option for medical school, for example. In terms of then people in our program applying for medical school, it tends to be the case that say like around this time of year or even earlier when you're studying for the MCAT and so on, the curriculum is rigorous enough that it's sort of hard to work or prepare yourself for these standardized tests while the program is ongoing. So usually we see people who graduate in May then will apply for medical programs the following year. Pilar, I know you weren't necessarily applying for medical programs, but with your cohort, was that sort of the case?
Yeah, this is actually exactly what happened. And one of my classmates, he actually tried to study for his MCAT for the last couple of weeks in the master program, and he said he didn't do as well, and he had to study again and retake it. So after talking to different classmates who were interested in medical school, they all said, just wait until you are done with the program and then start studying for the MCAT and then apply. Just so you are like a strong applicant in every single aspect. You're doing well on your MCAT, you have done well on your program, and you have even more time to collect your letters of rank, personal statement, resume, even more experiences, so things like that.
I appreciate all your answers. Thank you for that.
Are there any other questions for our panelists this evening? Great. Just final thoughts, panelists, Christian, June, if there are any final thoughts that you'd like to take a minute or so to give our students that are here this evening, that would be great. Great, would appreciate that.
I'll just reiterate some of the things that June and I said earlier. It should be about the fit. So you make sure you take some time to look into the programs, especially for those of you participating tomorrow. Make sure that it's going to provide what you're looking to get. We sort of see ourselves as a stepping stone in a way. So if you're crossing a stream, we prefer that stone to be right in the middle of the stream so that there's not a risk of splashing on the way to the stone, or there's not too far after you've been at the stone to get to the other side. We hope to be that sort of stone centrally placed that it makes your success more realizable, and it helps us to empower you to be successful.
All right. Well, first of all, I'm just impressed with, the fact that four students have stayed all the way till the end. And as promised, so the four of you guys, go ahead and email me. And if you end up applying to KGI, I'm going to waive your application fee. And then for Zachary, mad props to you for just having the camera on, because it's very stressful to have the camera on. And so what I want to offer you is a half-hour one-on-one advising if you want it. Just go ahead and email me. I'd be more than happy to provide advising. again, I mean, this is where I love what I get to do. I thought I wanted to go into medicine many, many years ago when I stepped foot on campus at UCLA. And it's so wonderful that I get to sort of do what I wish I was able to receive back when I was a student. So thanks for making the time. And Sarah, thanks for hosting, and Pilar. You know, I'm kind of not convinced you're a real student. I think you're a paid actress that Christian found. No, I'm just teasing. It was great meeting you. All the best. I'm glad you're doing what you love.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, and it was a pleasure to host. And yeah, if any of you guys are interested in art, just let me know. So
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with all of you.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Sarah, for moderating and hosting this evening. Really appreciate it. Christian, June, thank you. Pilar, thank you for coming on and providing students feedback. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and end our program. So I'm going to stop the recording.